Morning, everybody. Okay, let's hey Dana. Long time no see. Morning, Mike. What up? What up? Short and sweet this morning. Carlo, what's going on? Yeah, short and sweet this morning. I mean, it's really simple what's going on. You can just start to see a little bit more of the corrective nature happening in the market. Now, got a couple different areas we can look to kind of look for these reversals from. They might take, you might not have a trade today. Things are shaping up to kind of start delivering, but it might take a little bit more time, right? Like you just have to remember that right now we are very much, in terms of the 15-minute, the trend is bearish, right? 4-hour, we're bullish. So right now, taking a long, we need to see a 15-minute chalk. That's basically the only model that we have to essentially take any kind of trade, right? So there's a couple different things we can do here, depending on how aggressive we want to get with it. Right now, I just have these wicks marked down here. You could technically mark this entire area right here as your flip, depending on, of course, how aggressive you want to get. We do have lots of targeted liquidity here to kind of come up into this guy, come up into this guy, all that kind of fun stuff, come up into this guy now. But the bottom line is we need to see a chalk and flip on the 15 before we can even get interested. So if you wanted to, and you wanted to start getting involved potentially a little bit earlier, possibly prematurely, but nonetheless, sort of play like a pretty strong reaction in the market, I would argue that you could probably look at, like this entire range sitting like this right here. Oops. Let's grab this guy. Like that. So, you could start looking once we got into this range. Now, be mindful of the fact that because we're playing with sort of 4-hour intention and stuff like that, what do we want to see, right? So you got to make a checklist, and we're going to get into doing this. I'm actually going to template a couple different checklists for where we sit and stuff like that. So what I would say is, once we hit here, remember that usually the first 15-minute chalk is going to be ran, right? It's going to be ran as inducement. Doesn't always work that way, but you have to be suspicious of it. Now, you can see that we've essentially got a bunch of liquidity, but ideally what we're going to want to see on the first chalk is, kind of drive, like let's say we drive down like this. We take the low, we take out the high right here, we come back down, we kind of dink around in here, and then ultimately we see a sweep down into here, followed by a sweep of the sweep. And then we can start looking to, start targeting this stuff like this. But like, you just have to, this is where like liquidity concepts kind of get favored, right? Especially on like the early set-in reversals is like, okay, yeah, we do have liquidity up here, but if we need to come out and take out the low, it's all about how we react off of, X strong low. And if you just see that we have a poor delivery like this, it's really simple. You can get involved here. Just make sure that you're protecting your risk, right? And if we liquidate again, just remember the second that we break through this low, we're proving that the M15 is still pro-trend in terms of the bearish order flow, right? So we need to remember that when this breaks through, don't forget that you now need a 15-minute chalk to happen again, right? A lot of people get really caught up, myself included, but again, this is kind of where that whole new entry model kind of got founded from, was like sitting here waiting, watching this, and then seeing a nice refined POY down here. So The new model, in a nutshell, is like, okay, well, once we tap into an area where we've liquidated from a higher time frame, liquidated here, come back into here, and then we see the 1 minute chalk and flip. Well, then we can take this into here and take a good portion of our profits off. Anyway, so I don't want to get too much into the entry model. We're going to get into that this week. But the bottom line is where we sit right now, so that we're not confused and we just stay super aligned with what it is that we're looking to essentially trade, is we're looking to take this ideally from this level right here. We're not going to fuck around with a bunch of stuff in here. Let's just wait for the market to sort of develop. The area that takes liquidity is from this wick. There might be some refined stuff in here too, but it really doesn't matter, because really what we're looking to do is look for the 15-minute chalk once we actually enter the higher time frame POI, whether it be this guy or this entire shaded area right here. So today, more than likely, will be a no trade day. Now, on the flip side of things, in terms of how we sort of look at our flow chart, right now we can take the M15 pro trend and take sells, right? Like, don't get it twisted. Like, even though the highest probability trade comes from here, we have a model to ride pro trend down into the POI, right? Take the sells into the buys. So right now, the way that it looks is, okay, we've had a break of structure here, right? So somewhere up in these regions, as long as we don't tap into demand first, you know what I mean? We could look for some sort of a chalk and flip, and you guys can decide what those POIs are. Personally, I'm not bothering with any of this. And reason being is I'm waiting to load up on potential buys down here. The only area that I'd be really interested in selling from would be once we actually liquidate all of these areas, right? Once we start liquidating all these areas, if we come down, like, and again, this is like playing the other side of it, is, okay, we have a long bias, obviously, if we come down here to a certain degree. Now, if we come down into here, okay, and then we do whatever, our chalk and flip, we come up, we mitigate something like this, come back down. Well, now we know that we have tons of liquidity to be able to target. If you take this into these areas up here, boom, and then all of a sudden now you look to the left hand side and we start to see a 15-minute chalk realign in here. Well, guess what? The areas that are now weak are likely to be these areas because we couldn't sustain this high, right? So again, now that we've had a little bit more development in price, this is like kind of like the exact schematic that I'm hoping to play out as it stands right now. I'm really hoping to see this because what's going to end up happening is if we come through and liquidate all of this stuff, you have to remember it's going to be very hard to target liquidity up here if we deliver impulsively down like this, right? So a lot of people are going to want to trade from here. It's going to create a lot of orders underneath here, a lot of orders already underneath here, a lot of orders already underneath here. You get the point, right? So this is, in my opinion, if we came up to these regions, like this is the trade of the week for me now, to take the sells into weak lows. I think that we're seeing a larger sort of distribution schematic play out right now, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to kind of play into. So I hope that makes sense. Any questions, you guys can hit me up at 12 when we jump on the call. But as it stands right now, the next reasonable play for myself is going to be coming down into here, depending on what criteria gets met today. And furthermore, if we end up coming up to something like this and sweeping through all of this stuff, I would say that this is a really good sell opportunity to come down into here. Make sense? Drop a 1 if you got it, and make sure that we're on the same page. It's just a waiting game now. Just remember, like we're not in a rush to do anything. We're just chilling, watching, waiting for our edge to play out, and nothing more, nothing less, man. Just be patient. Let things develop. And what I would suggest doing, and what I found really, really helpful, is if and when you print off your flow charts, which I suggest everybody does, mark out and literally get a big black magic Sharpie, whatever the fuck it is that you want to use, and trace out where you are for your sell and trace out where you are for your buy, right? Depending on where you would like to, because everything revolves around what POI you want to trade to or from, and then essentially where you want to target, right? So if you have a good idea of that, you can actually map out on the chart, on the flow chart rather, exactly where you're sitting right now so that there's no guesswork, right? And then every time that you would progress through your flow chart, you should set some sort of an alert over here. If this happens, if we break this area, that creates POI, right? So boom, put an alert and say, okay, POI has been created. Come over to your drawings, mark out your POI. And then the next step is put an alert once we enter the POI. Okay, once you put an alert where the actual POI gets entered, let me just get rid of my drawings, you can then mark something like this, and you can go, okay, like let's say this is our POI like this, add alert. And now what we can do is double click and just say, okay, well, entered POI. Yeah, entered POI. Put down your lower time frame confirmations in bullet points if you want right here. You could also come up to the top and use some sort of an annotation tool and put and save it as a template and say, okay, we're a pro trend, pro order flow M15, looking for sells. List all of your criteria right here, XYZ, whatever the fuck it is. And then that way, when it actually happens, you're not fumbling between the flow chart and saying, oh, fuck, like in my pro counter, like what's going on? I can't remember what I did here. So your notes are what are going to save your ass, right? You don't have to remember all of this stuff. And you can also label all of these different entry models as, you know, A1, B1, C1, D1, whatever it is that you want to call them. Or if you only trade one specific entry, name it something, right? So you know what it is that you're trading so that that repetition starts happening, right? We're going to get into this a little bit more this week. We're going to look at naming the flowchart models a little bit better so that we can actually start to like brand them out a little bit and people just recognize where they sit in terms of the name of the actual flowchart model. But yeah, for the time being, again, I'm just kind of rambling. It's my first week back with you guys. All excited to be here. But yeah, just remember, like your annotation and your goodness, what are these called again? Alerts are your best friend. So don't be scared to use the tools that are literally sitting there for you to be able to use them. Okay, so I'll catch you guys at 12, provided we have some trades, of course, and if not, we'll just carry through to do like a quick or a brief Q&A of anything that's happened in the trading questions section or anything that comes up within the call. Have a good session. Do not force trades, and we'll catch you guys in a little bit.